It's like the 20th time me trying this because I keep having technical issues. So let's try it again. Today's video is going to be on Shoulder the Burden. Shoulder the Burden, pretty simple perk. Quick thing of how it works. As long as you don't already have 2 hook stages, you can unhook another survivor using the perk and take one of their hook stages when you do it, and then you're exposed for 40 seconds. It's so simple enough. And when the perk is used, it is deactivated for the rest of the trial. This perk is often seen as overpowered purely because of how it can be used by Survive with Friends. But personally, in my opinion, it's one of the best designed perks Dead by Daylight has currently. You see, one of the many issues I have with most of the perks in Dead by Daylight is they don't promote teamwork. All the exhaustion perks are just about stunning or getting away from the killer quickly. We have all the heal yourself, unhook yourself, give yourself these. Teamwork has been such a background factor on the side about a team that it's become a huge issue. Now, Shoulder the Burden is exactly the type of perk that I want to see more of for survivors. It has a strong ability that can be used, but it also isn't good in every match. Let's say, for example, that back to the other scenario. So let's go back to the same scenario. Steve is back on hook, and Nicolas Cage has Shoulder the Burden, but this time Nicolas Cage already is hooked. Now, if Nicolas Cage unhooks the Steve, well, he doesn't really do anything. Instead of Steve being on death hook, it's now the Cage. So effectively, the only difference now is that instead of going for the Steve for the kill, you'd go for Nicolas Cage. So the only situation where Shoulder the Burden comes into play is if one player who needs to be unhooked is on their last hook and the player with Shoulder the Burden has no hooks. Otherwise, you're in the same scenario as you would have been without using the perk. The perk in turn is a risk reward. If you get hooked first in the game, well, the moment you have one hook, you basically don't have the perk. If this Steve has the perk, he has no reason to use it for the rest of the game. Okay, so we have a theoretical. We have a Nicolas Cage that's already used the Shoulder Burden and on last hook now. We have a Steve with one hook. We have a Claudette and Ace both on the hook. Now, in this scenario, if Steve uses his Shoulder Burden on either of them, he's effectively just putting himself at risk to go down due to the insta-down. Let's say he goes for the Claudette. He uses his Shoulder of the Burden. He goes for the play and, well, now the player that's closest to death is exposed, therefore in the most amount of danger. That's the player you don't want in danger, while the player who now is no longer on death hook has the base kit haste and hindered from getting unhooked. So now all he's done trying to use that perk is putting himself at risk and in turn probably going to die, killing the rest of his teammates. And all that because he decided to try and use Shoulder the Burden. You only really want to use Shoulder the Burden if you have no hooks and the person you're unhooking is on death hook. Let's bring the killer on the board. So now we have a scenario. Let's assume they all are a Survive with Friends for Shoulder the Burden. They want to try to get use out of this perk. Right after that, we have an issue. Only 3 of them at most will be able to use it. Let's say you're playing killer. You decide you want to try and tunnel. That's your way to win this game, okay? So you go after the Steve, you hit him, get him down twice on death hook. Then the Claudette goes for the Shoulder the Burden save. Steve no longer has Shoulder the Burden because if he uses it, he just put himself at risk. On top of that, since you're tunneling him, we're just going to assume you are hard tunneling him. You don't even go for the Claudette. Now Claudette no longer has Shoulder the Burden because she used it on the Steve. So you decide to keep going after the Steve and you down him again. Then the Ace gets the Shoulder the Burden save. And then once more with the Nicolas Cage. Now, 3 out of 4 of the survivors got to use their Shoulder the Burden. You have got 4 hooks on the same survivor, yet only 1 has actually counted. This is usually where people start saying that the perk is overpowered. And it's why I massively disagree. See, the issue here isn't the perk. It's the killer. I'm not saying it's tunneling. No. Well, not necessarily. You see, I don't have a problem with tunneling. It's a part of the game. The problem is, you decide to keep tunneling even after the survivors clearly know how to counter it. So let's go back a little bit. Now, as discussed, Steve no longer really has Shoulder the Burden. It has no use at this point. You decide you want to try to tunnel. So you go, he gets unhooked, and you go for the hook again. Now Claudette is going for the Shoulder the Burden save because she sees her friends being tunneled, Now going for shoulder the burden is the smartest play. See, now this is where your strategy should change. It's not that you shouldn't ever tunnel, it's rather that you should be smart and know when you shouldn't tunnel. At this point, you shouldn't keep going after the Steve. It's clear that they know what they're doing, they have it. You should be able to, especially at this point, tell that it's a survivor with friends. They'll have information that they can only know if another survivor told them. What do you as a killer do at this point? You have a couple of choices. If you go for Claudette, the same thing that happened before will happen again. Instead, what you should do is go for one of these two. Let's say you go after the Nicolas Cage. Now, Nicolas Cage no longer has shoulder burden because he has no reason to. Ace is the only person with shoulder burden left. You have a couple of choices here. You can either pressure Ace while he's on the hook, and in turn, this will make sure that Ace cannot use his shoulder burden, and the other two will have to go for the unhook. You can proxy camp, at which point, if you do proxy camp, you can take advantage of the exposed from shoulder the burden, at which point they did get use out of it. If he goes down here, that's a much quicker stage than either waiting 70 seconds or going for a healthy, non-exposed survivor. And now congrats, you got rid of all of their shoulder the burdens while still having 5 hook stages with 1 survivor on death hook. See, this is why I like shoulder the burden. It has counterplay, it has mind games around it, around how you're gonna play, trying to figure out how they're gonna play. And most importantly, it is a perk about teamwork. It is about survivors trying to help each other, not be their own thing. This is exactly the type of perk we need more of on the survivor side. Survivors should have perks based around being teammates, being around teamwork, not just around doing their own thing off in a corner and getting a gen done in 20 seconds. It promotes altruism and it gives killers different ways that they could play around it, all around. This is exactly the type of perk that is extremely healthy for Dead by Daylight. When used well, is also strong, but also isn't so powerful that it's overbearing. It has counterplay. It has fun ways that it could be used. Now, you can argue, Vigil with that being kind of meta right now, but I don't bring that up because I think Vigil is a discussion for another day. My point is, Shoulder the Burden is one of the best perks in the game. It is one of the most well-designed perks in the game. That rewards teamwork on the survivor side while also having counterplay on the killer side, but still being powerful.